Open back up to Exodus, okay? We're going to continue our Exodus series this morning. Going to be in Exodus, the end of 3. We're going to kind of review the end of 3 and then go into chapter 4. Just recently I was watching a video on YouTube. You know how on YouTube there's a little commercials at the beginning? And usually if that skip ad option is there, I click that as soon as possible to get past the stupid ad to what I actually want to see. But there was an ad that caught my attention recently for this Teleflora company, which I guess is a florist that you can go online and order flowers and they'll send them wherever. And this ad was showing footage of this family. It looked like a really nice family, young kids, dad's playing in the pool with his kids, then it shows them running around the house wrestling with the kids. And the mom is talking about her life, and she's talking about her expectations for her marriage and her family and how she wanted to have the perfect home life. But how things changed for her when her daughter was born, and the doctor immediately said to her, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but your daughter is disabled." And it turned out she has a handicap, probably like a Down syndrome. And it sort of zooms in, you can see the little girl, and she's super cute. And then the mom continues to talk about how this just rattled her. It just completely tipped upside down her views of what her life was going to be. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, "I didn't doubt that I could love this little girl, but I did doubt that I was the right woman for the job." And something about that just gripped me. For one thing, many times in my life I think, man, I don't feel like I'm the right guy for this job. And I don't mean like the church job. I mean like just this job. Like every part, I'm not going to go into the details because it's embarrassing, but every part of life, there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the right man for this job. Especially when it comes to relationships, which are challenging. And as I'm counseling people, I hear that all the time. People may explicitly say it or they may imply it, but they're saying, I don't think I'm the right person for this. Or why me? They're saying that sort of thing. And in that commercial, which was a true story, in that commercial, that mom is talking about her life circumstances that threatened her sense of identity, who she is. It made her wrestle with who she is, what she's capable of. And her story, how's her life going to turn out? What's it going to be like? And every one of you, at some point, you think about those realities. Your identity, who you are, how you understand yourself, your abilities, your disabilities, and your story of your life. How it has gone, how it's going to go, expectations you have for it, or whatever. And Exodus is really helping us with those very important realities in terms of our identity and our view of our story, our lives, the purpose of our lives. We could say it that way. And we're going to see as we walk through this, Moses' default mode was to trust in his own opinion of his identity, his own view of his life story. And that is default for us as well. That is natural for us. We don't naturally start with who God is. We tend to start with what our perspective of identity and story is for ourselves. And in this passage we see Moses with those normal, that's what's great about this book, is God is giving us normal human beings and their stories to help us understand ours. So we see Moses wrestling with God in a way, questioning God, and we see God working in his life to show him that he's up to good and he knows what he's doing. And then when it comes to Moses' sense of identity, and when it comes to even the story of Moses' life and his place in the larger story, it's God orchestrating things, and for a good reason, with good intentions, good plan, the redemptive plan. So that's what we're going to see this morning, okay? And I'm excited because I think this has a lot of potential to help us appreciate God more and to even understand things when it comes to who we are and the story of our lives. So let's work our way through the passage. We're going to walk through it as usual. I'm going to explain some things along the way. And then in the end, we're going to take a few minutes and talk a little bit more about identity, about the story of our lives. And then we're going to look finally at just how God, through Christ, makes sense of it all and helps us with all of it. But let's walk through, start in verse 10. And as I read through, you're going to notice Moses asking a lot of questions. You're going to notice Moses basically arguing with God, which is something that all of us do. So start in verse 10. It says, "Therefore," this is God speaking to Moses, "therefore come now and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Here's the plan, Moses. You're going to go to Pharaoh. And right away, verse 11, Moses said to God, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? Which is his way of saying, hey, I think you got the wrong guy. I'm not the one for this job. And look what God says, verse 12, to reassure him. He said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. When it's all said and done, you're going to look back and say, wow, God did that. And you're going to worship me, God says. Keep going. Verse 13. Another form of protest here. Moses said to God, behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. Now they may say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? So what am I going to say when they say, God, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, can we have vague memories of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and stories we've heard? But I mean, hundreds of years have gone by. Where is this God you're talking about? Moses is anticipating the challenges. He's afraid. So what am I going to say? So God says to him, verse 14, I am who I am. Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. The I am God. God who was, is, always will be, unchanging, the true God, the being God. I think I explained it last week, that term translated I am who I am, and even the name Yahweh. You've heard the name Yahweh. It's usually translated in the New American Standard. It's translated all caps, capital L-O-R-D. That's the name Yahweh. It's the personal name of God. It's all from the same Hebrew root, which has to do with the being one, the one who always has been, always will be. He says, just tell him I'm the one who sent you. So again, he's reassuring him. God furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations, from those days to today, for you and for me. He says, go and gather the elders of Israel together. Say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt. So I said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. They will pay heed to what you say, and you with the elders of Israel will come to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, so now please let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not permit you to go except under compulsion, so I will stretch out my hand, strike Egypt with my miracles, which I shall do in the midst of it, and after that he will let you go. I will grant this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and it shall be, when you go, you will not go empty-handed, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor, the woman who lives in her house, articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing, and you will put them on your sons and daughters. Thus you will plunder the Egyptians. So here's what God is saying. Look, Moses, I know you have your fears. I know you have your reservations. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to ensure that you are victorious. This is going to play out exactly how I want it to play out. You're going to talk to the elders of Israel, and he tells them right here explicitly, and they're going to listen to you. They're going to receive what you have to say. And that's going to be important in just a second. But notice that he tells them they're going to listen to you. Now he says, when you go to Pharaoh, he's not going to listen to you, but I'm going to persuade him by means of miracles, and then you're going to see my power displayed. God is reassuring him, reassuring him, reassuring him. Now move to chapter 4. Here's Moses protesting again. Verse 1, then Moses said, what if they will not believe me or listen to what I say? He's referring now to the elders of Israel. God already told them they're going to listen to you, but he's saying, hey, but just let's for fun here, God. What if they don't? Then what? For they may say, the Lord has not appeared to you. You're crazy, man. Come on. What are you talking? So you're walking in the desert, you see a burning bush, God talks to you. You serious? I mean, you can kind of appreciate that, right? He's like, they're not going to listen to me. So the Lord said to him, verse 2, what's in your hand? A staff, which shepherds would have in those days. Makes sense. Then he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses, being the fearful guy that he is, fled from it. But the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand, grasp it by its tail. So he stretched it out, caught it, became a staff in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. So he says, here's a sign, Moses. Here's a sign. Throws a staff down, becomes a snake. Pick it up by the tail, which I'm no snake handler, but as far as I know, it's not a good idea to grab by the tail. But he says, grab by the tail, and turns into a staff again. So he's showing his power over a serpent, and this is just interesting little cultural details, but the Egyptians worshipped snakes. That some of the pharaohs would have emblems or symbols of snakes on their crowns or in other places that just represented power and beauty. And this is God saying, I have authority over that. But this, in my mind too, it kind of harkens back to Genesis in the ways God saying, I think there's a sense in which he's saying, look, Satan himself, who is typically thought of in terms of serpents, I'm sovereign over him. He's a tool in my hands. So Moses is seeing this sign. And he says, there's more signs I'm going to give you. Verse 6, the Lord furthermore said to him, put your hand in your bosom. So he put his hand into his bosom, which always sounds funny to me. And when he took it out, just because the word bosom is funny. Anyway, and he took it out. Behold, his hand was leprous like snow. So now he's showing his sovereignty, his power over the human body. And leprosy in those days was considered a very serious illness, something they didn't have any cure for, had been a problem in Egypt. And he says, look, I'm sovereign over that too. And you pull your hand out, it's leprous, and then you put it back, and it's not. So he's just showing, I have control. I'm gonna reveal my power. And then finally, he's going to give him another sign. So verse 8, if they will not believe you or heed the witness of the first sign, they may believe the witness of the last sign. But if they will not believe even these two signs or hear what you say, then you shall take some water from the Nile, pour it on the dry ground, and the water which you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. Now he's saying, look, the Nile River, which represents the economy basically of Egypt, the fertility of Egypt, he's showing his power over the Nile. Just take the water out, turns to blood, and there'll be a plague related to that comes up later in Exodus. And these are all powerful displays of God saying, hey, I'm with you. I'm going to give you what you need. And he's giving Moses, even in this moment, evidence, real concrete evidence that God is in fact with him. But that doesn't stop Moses from his questions, and we may want to kind of mock him a little bit, say, come on, man, I mean, God's right there with you, he's talking to you, he's showing these signs, but human nature is what human nature is, and he's still just, So Moses said to the Lord, look at this, verse 10, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Okay, I get it, all these things, that's great, but you know what, I'm not a good speaker. I can't go up there. I mean, I'm not smooth. I'm not eloquent. I'm not going to be able to talk this guy, this Pharaoh, or even the elders of Israel, the Pharaoh. I'm not going to be able to talk them into this plan that you have, God. I'm not the right guy for this job. You get the wrong person. The Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then, go, and even I, will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say. Again, God says, I'm with you. I'm going to be with you. Verse 13, but he said, please, Lord, now send the message by whomever you will, which is his way of saying, look, anybody else, basically. Can you send anyone else? I remember in college, Jill's back there. She remembers this. We had this little song. We'd sing it in these pious kind of tones. Here am I, send me. Here am I, Lord, send me. And I used to sing that with such confidence. God, whatever you want, mission field, I'll go. You and me, God, we're going to come. Moses is way more honest than that. You know what? Can you send anybody else, please? And having lived a little bit more life, I realize how much sense that makes. Here am I, send someone else, is what he's saying. Keep reading, verse 14. The anger of the Lord burned against Moses, and he said, is there not your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he speaks fluently. And moreover, behold, he is coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he'll be glad in his heart. You are to speak to him, put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and his mouth. I will teach you what you are to do. Moreover, he shall speak for you to the people, and he will be as a mouth for you, and you will be as God to him. So God's making an arrangement here to use Aaron in this way. And it says, you shall take in your hand this staff with which you shall perform the signs. Then Moses departed, returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, please let me go, that I may return to my brethren who are in Egypt and see if they are still alive. And that, by the way, speaks of just how serious everything was. You had Pharaoh killing the firstborn sons. I mean, he's saying, look, is anyone even left there in Egypt? Let me go back and see. And Jethro says to Moses at the end of the verse, go in peace. I'm going to read a few more verses here. Now the Lord said to Moses in Midian, go back to Egypt, for all the men who are seeking your life are dead. So Moses took his wife and his sons and mounted them on a donkey and returned to the land of Egypt. Moses also took the staff of God in his hand. So he goes. He's got to be somewhat reluctant on the inside still, but he finally, okay, here we go. Okay, we're going. So he's heading back. And I'm going to have you, because there's a little bit more to it, and we might revisit this. We're kind of having like a bird's eye view this morning, okay? But skip over verse 21 to 26. Go back all the way down to 27, actually. And just look, I just want you to see something about how God says, hey, I'm going to bring Aaron. He's going to be your mouthpiece. Well, look how God now is working, not only in Moses' life and not only with the elders and with Pharaoh, and he's also working in Aaron's life, orchestrating things. So look at verse 27. Now the Lord said to Aaron, go to meet Moses in the wilderness. So he went and met him at the mountain of God and kissed him. Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord with which he had sent him, and all the signs that he commanded him to do. Then Moses and Aaron were sent and assembled all the elders of the sons of Israel, and Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken to Moses. He then performed the signs in the sight of the people. So the people believed, and when they had heard that the Lord was concerned about the sons of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed low and worshiped. So this was what, in this moment, we get a little picture of what God was really after. And there's several places in Exodus where God is making it clear, look, I'm doing this so that you'll see me, so that you'll know me, so that you'll see my glory, so that you'll see my power, so that you'll know that I'm your God. That even those days and weeks and months and years when you thought I wasn't with you, I was always with you. And all the suffering and the affliction and the slavery, I knew you in your suffering, and I've come to deliver you. And so this is a picture now of them initially hearing that God actually cares, that they're worshiping. They're seeing a little bit of God's value, and they're going to see a whole lot more of it as this unfolds. But this is God's end goal. This is what God's up to. It's what he was up to back then, and frankly, it's the same thing he's up to today, revealing to us his value, his glory. It's interesting, in Exodus 6, he says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He says, but I didn't reveal myself to them with the same clarity, Moses, I'm going to reveal myself to you. In fact, he says, I'm revealing myself to you as the I am God. He says, I didn't reveal myself in that same way back then. I'm telling you my very name. It's like this idea of God saying, over time, I'm going to make it more and more and more and more clear who I am. And of course, now, today, we have even greater clarity than they did because of Christ and who he is and what he accomplished. Now, in light of all that, let's think about identity a bit, okay? Let's think about this idea of our identity. In the disciplining work of God in our lives, he has his way of bringing challenges, challenging circumstances, challenging relationships, challenging physical conditions. And they threaten our sense of identity, who we are. I couldn't help but be gripped by this contrast in this text of Moses saying, who am I? And God saying, I am who I am. That contrast between the two. A human being, finite, frail human being saying, who am I? And God saying, I am. I can relate to the who am I question. You can relate to the who am I question. The example, that commercial I talked about earlier, you can relate to a mom who says, holy cow, I have a child now who's disabled. Who am I for that? I'm the right person for this job. We can relate to that, right? And if you haven't felt it in your life, you will feel it. And challenges come, and here's what our default mode is to do. It's to assess ourselves and come to conclusions about who we are, and catch this, even to say things of ourselves that start with, I am such and such. I am not the person for this job. In the counseling world and the secular psychology world, it's increasingly common to speak of terms that have to do with identity, like I am OCD, or I am bipolar, or I am, and fill in the blank, and there's a DSM, kind of like the encyclopedia of psychotherapy, and it has all this list, just countless mental disorders, mental illnesses, and people say, I am this. They're making a statement of identity. I'm going to read to you something that to me was fascinating, and as I studied Exodus, it made me think of this. Years ago, I had to read this for school. It's a secular psychology book on anxiety, and I want you to hear what it says. I mean, it's just amazing what they're saying. This is kind of like the latest in psychotherapy for people with anxiety issues, fear issues, extreme fear, kind of like what Moses is dealing with, in a sense. Listen to what they say. Labeling yourself with a diagnosis or two will not make your life more livable or help you in other ways. In fact, the label can even become a self-fulfilling prophecy, something you become. It's hard to shake labels once they're applied to you. Two other things I want to read to you. There's a whole chapter here on the topic of identity. And they keep playing off of this concept of I am, fill in the blank. Listen to what it says. We've often found that people struggling with anxiety problems take on their worries, anxieties, and fears as their very identity. It's very easy to become so fused with and trapped by thoughts like, I am shy, or I am depressed, that we don't even notice when it happens. Every time you say I am, you become what comes after I am. You are literally it. You become the very thing you most dread, and that is hurtful. One more, and I'm going to wrap all this up and hopefully clarify some things. Describing now, toward the end of that chapter, the struggle that is, the struggle inside of all of us to some degree of just, who am I? And that struggle with these I am statements, trying to kind of define ourselves, define our own identity. This is how they wrap it up. How do I drop the rope? In other words, that tug of war that goes on all the time, how do I drop the rope? How do I find any peace when my mind keeps throwing these evaluative, I am this or I am that statements at me? The answer is as simple as it is baffling. I am neither this nor that, but instead, listen to this, I am. I am that I am. Answering the question, who am I really, with a simple, disarming I am, allows you to drop all those evaluative self-statements your mind constantly dishes out to you. It's the simplest and easiest way to drop the rope once and for all. No more arguments, explanations, justifications, and so on. I am that I am. Exclamation point. I read those quotes for two reasons. One, I want you to see that even the secular psychological resources they're trying to get at these human experiences and say, hey, this is what's happening. All of us are telling ourselves things. There's that internal monologue. And that's hurtful. And they go on to say in there, and my experience tells me as well, it can sound different ways. It can be, I am weak. That narrative, I am sick, I am weak, I have a mental illness. Or it can be, I am strong, I am great at this, I am great at that. Either way, it's hurtful and becomes abusive to other people. Did you know that? Either way. And how does it begin every time? It begins with two words, I am. It's me sitting as sovereign saying, I am. Fill in the blank. I am defining my identity. That's a problem. That's a problem. The second reason I share quotes like that is because not only are they getting at something that's a real human experience, but if you heard what they said, it really cries out for the gospel. Because in the end, the way they try to tie it all up is to say, here's what helps you, just say I am that I am. If you're plagued by being God, literally go for the gusto and just be the I am. Think of the irony of that. And here is God speaking to a finite, normal human being saying, Moses, you don't even know who you are. I know who you are. And I know, more importantly, who I am. And I'm the center of the universe, and you're not. And that's a good thing for you. You're freed of the burden of having to define yourself. I mean, if we could get that, wow. I mean, God is just lovingly showing Moses, look, man, I mean, think about it. When he says, who am I? Why is he saying, who am I to go to Pharaoh? You know why? Because he's looking at himself and he's saying, I don't have the resources for this. I don't have the capability for this. What's his presupposition there? Hey, if this thing's going to happen, it's riding on who? It's riding on me. And God says, well, no, you don't get, I am. I am with you. I am and I am with you. You get that? You see that? Just as true for you and me today. It's just amazing. This is fascinating too. I'm going to read you something from Acts 7. Listen to this, okay? So remember what Moses said. In fact, he repeats it in later chapters over and over. Moses says, I'm not eloquent. I'm not a man of speech. This isn't you get the wrong guy. I'm a stumbling, bumbling idiot. He's like, I can't do it. How do I got to convince you, God? Listen to Acts 7. Listen to this. Pharaoh's daughter took Moses away and nurtured him as her own son. Moses was educated in all the learning of the Egyptians, and he was a man of power in words and deeds. You catch the contradiction there? Do you realize in Moses' evaluation of himself, he wasn't even seeing himself clearly, just even on a human level. He wasn't seeing it right. God says, hey, good news. I know you way better than you know yourself. And I'm conveying truth to you through this book, through my spirit, through people around you who belong to me, whom I love and speak truth to you. And they're all conveying truth to you to liberate you from that voice in your head that lies to you. That little sovereign voices, I am this. Whether that's I am strong or I'm weak and I'm pathetic. Whatever it is, it's not true. And God loves you enough to tell you it's not true. You're only going to hurt yourself when you listen to that voice. I'm the center of the universe. You're not. I know what's true. You don't. Who knew better who Moses really was? Moses or God? God. God knew exactly who he made him to be. That's why it says he got angry with him, and we were joking about it today, and Greg can do it. It literally in the Hebrew, it's God flared his nostrils at him. He's like, kind of angered God when Moses kept pushing back. It's fine, we'll send Aaron. Someday have Greg flare his nostrils for you. It's great. You're welcome, Greg. So that's identity, some thoughts on identity, okay? Some thoughts on our story. I mean, Moses' perspective, hey, Pharaoh's not going to listen to me, is what he's implying by what he says back to God. Later, the Israelites, they're not going to listen to me. Which is, again, the whole thing's kind of riding on me when it comes to storyline, what you're trying to do here, God. I mean, it's not going to happen the way you're saying, at least I don't think it is. And God says, I am with you. God says, look, the elders of Israel, they're going to listen to you. Pharaoh's going to be persuaded by me. I'm going to do what is necessary to persuade him. He's going to let you out. I mean, Moses just had a hard time when it came to his life. And, I think about, and I suspect you probably experienced it this way too, and there's different personality types in here. You may experience this to a different degree than other people, but when it comes to the sense of identity, I think we all wrestle with kind of thoughts of, hey, I am strong. Sometimes I think that way, and other times I think I'm weak. And it sort of vacillates back and forth. And I would suspect the same is true of you when it comes to your identity. And maybe certain areas you feel like you're strong, and other areas you feel like you're weak, and you're plagued by either this sort of pride, arrogance, or this still pride and arrogance, but the woe is me form of that. The obvious form, the less obvious form. When it comes to the story of our lives, the storyline and who we are and how it fits with everything from our relationships and our career and our accomplishments and all that stuff, our assumption is it all is riding on us, and if the identity piece is this struggle between I am strong and I am weak, then the storyline piece is kind of like this struggle between I am winning and I'm losing. Am I winning here or am I losing here? And in every aspect of life, there's this strange kind of swinging pendulum in our mind. I'm winning, okay. And if I'm losing, well, I need to get back on the advantage. So how do I get to the winning again? I don't like this losing feeling. How do I get to winning? And the presupposition is it's up to me. The presupposition is this thing is kind of like I'm the author of my story in a sense. We even kind of bring God along for the ride sometimes, but it's like, hey, God, you just come along with me and we're going to get this thing right. And here's this loving, gracious God saying, look, Moses, I'm in charge here. If you're going to understand your identity and your story, it starts with who I am, not who you are. By default, we start with who we are, who other people are, what's in front of us to do. And God says it starts with who I am, not who you are. And when it comes to the challenges of life, God brings things our way, and we're like, what is going on? And as I've been saying, He's bringing us through our own exodus of sorts. He's saved us, and He is saving us. Moses, his reaction was, hey, like I read it earlier, verse 13, hey, send anybody, send someone else. I want you to hear this, think about this. You know, God did send someone else. I mean, in one sense, yeah, he sent Moses and he went through all that and the ups and downs, and he was still fearful and struggling and sinning, and he got angry with the people and he struck the rock and all the stuff that we're going to look at in the future. But you know, God did send someone else for Moses, and He did send someone else for you. And the key to understanding your identity with clarity and your story with clarity is to understand who that person was and is. That's Christ, who comes into this world, who experiences human frailty. And unlike Moses and unlike you and unlike me, He absolutely, in every way, unreservedly, without any sin, submits to everything that His Father has for Him in terms of His identity while He's here in this world and His storyline while He's here in this world. Do you realize that? He lives fully righteously in every conceivable way. He says, I don't even do what I want to do. I do what my Father tells me to do. I practice what I observe from my Father. I mean, He's just over and over again. He's saying, my Father is the center of my universe. And that's how I live. And I serve. And He lays His life down. And He goes to the cross and He takes upon Himself sin for all that rebellion. All that is, we said earlier, the I am stuff, it's rebellion. It's us saying, God, you sit down here, I'm going to sit up there for a while. Jesus submits. He takes the penalty of death that is deserved for that type of rebellion. He takes it upon Himself and says, now you are forgiven. You are set free. You are liberated. You are redeemed. You're free from Egypt. You're free from Pharaoh. Christ did that. God sent Him to do that. And now we're learning, having heard that message, having received it, having been saved by it, having been born again. Now we're in this journey where God is teaching us over and over and over again as we wrestle with those internal voices and even the voices out there telling us, you're a winner, you're a loser, you're strong, you're weak, whatever. All those voices, God says, look, I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. And everything you go through, whether the victories or the defeats, the gains or the losses, it's all so that you would see my storyline, my redemption, who Jesus is for you, that He's your life, He's your living bread, He's your living water. Your identity is bound up in Him, not what you say is true of you, but what I say is true of you. And God says, you're my child, you're beloved, you're accepted, you're forgiven, you're secure, you have hope, you have everything. You are complete, as it says in Colossians. You lack nothing. I mean, God, that's what's true of you. 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 And everything you go through in your life, yeah, do you make decisions? Yeah, you make decisions. Where you're going to go to school, what you're going to do for work, who you're going to get married to, who you're going to get divorced from. I mean, we make decisions. Moses made decisions. But overall was a God who said, I'm orchestrating everything. And I'm even in control. And I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. I'm going to soften Pharaoh's heart. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And it's all a mission of liberation. And it's all a mission of liberation from that self-sovereignty, the I am, that we have to be the center of everything. That everything revolves around us. And we got to define ourselves. And even the psychologists are saying, you know, we're finding that's not helpful for people because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why I've been communicating with you all along. Don't listen. Listen to me. He says. So I'm going to end with this. We saw Creed 2 last week. You know I had to mention this. I mean, saw Creed 2, which, let's face it, is essentially Rocky 8. And I struggled after seeing the movie because I always go in with very high expectations. I'm probably one of the only people on earth that goes into those movies with super high expectations. But I did. And at first I couldn't think of like anything redemptive exactly. Now I've got all sorts of things after giving it some thought, after obsessing over it. But there's this line in the movie where Apollo Creed's son, he's become champion, okay? He's the heavyweight champion of the world. In some sense on top of the world. He's just gotten engaged. He's going to have a baby. He and his wife going to have a baby. Or his wife to be, I guess. And this promoter is trying to rope him into this fight with Ivan Drago's son. I mean, can you believe this? All these years later. He's going to face the guy whose dad killed his dad. Wow, what a script. Anyway, has everything. Boxing, drama, I mean everything, Sidney. So he says this promoter's trying to get him because he knows he's maybe hesitant, so he's trying to get him to buy on, to say, yeah, I'll take this fight. So he says, look, man, you got the belt, you got the championship, but what you need is, you need a narrative that sticks to the ribs. You need a storyline that matters. I mean, yeah, you got the belt, you're the champion, but I mean, you need a real storyline, man. What's he saying to him? You got to make more of yourself. You got to be bigger than you are. Then you'll be satisfied. Then you'll really have the glory. Then you'll really shine. There's a sense in which that same voice, that temptation, just keeps us enslaved of, it's got to be more. I got to have more. I got to be more. I got to get more. I got to make more of myself. And the crushing weight of that. And the freedom of relaxing and believing God is. He is I am. He made you to be who you are, with the ups and the downs and the abilities and the disabilities. Who makes man's mouth? Who makes him speak? Who makes him mute? Who makes one disabled and another able-bodied? Who does that? Who gives one person athletic abilities and the other person not so much? Or mathematical abilities and the other person not so much? Or a certain IQ and the other person a lower IQ? Who distributes all of those gifts? Who determines all of this? God does. And who liberates you from the burdens of sin and death and emptiness and despair and hopelessness? God does. And he was inviting Moses to just, Moses, come along. I'm doing something here. You're very small. You get to be a part of this. You get to be a part of this. But I don't need you. So just be small. Let me be I am. And you be small. And I'm going to do something amazing. And that's what he's up to in our lives. And he's showing us through every aspect of life, I believe, this redemptive plan. Liberating us from all those delusions of grandeur and what we think we got to get for ourselves, all that selfish stuff. Helping us to see him, helping us to see other people. That's where serving comes from. Putting someone else's interest before your own. It can only happen when you see God as the center of the universe. The one who is self-sustaining and gives you absolutely everything in Christ that you need. So let's pray and ask God to just make this more real to us. God, thank you that we get to read the story of a real human being that we can relate to. And we can understand. And God, probably in many ways we're still blind to the enslaving lies that we believe that are hurtful to us, hurtful to the people around us. Whether we think that we're stronger than we are or weaker than we are. Not seeing things clearly. God, we can only repent of that, turn away from our perspective and say, please show us the truth. Open our eyes to see what is true. Save us from this obsession with who we are and what we get for ourselves. Save us from our constant comparisons to other people and what they've achieved or what they get. Help us to see you and who you are and what you're up to. God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God who is sovereign over Moses and involved with his life, and Pharaoh and involved with his life, and Aaron and involved with his life, that you too are involved in our lives. Help us to see it, to believe it. Thank you for your relentless commitment to showing us that. And for Christ and what he did for us as our substitute, and help us in life to keep fixing our eyes on him, the author and perfecter of our faith, the one who is the true author of our story. Help us to rest. And as a result, God, we want there to be fruit of gratitude toward you, thanksgiving, and fruit of love and compassion and service to the people around us. So thank you for what you've taught us this morning. Help us to remember it in Jesus' name.